But Andrew Bostom is with us, author of The Legacy of Jihad, The Legacy of Islamic Anti-Semitism, joins us to talk about just who is in charge in Egypt right now. Again, we had over 50 dead today so far in clashes between the Muslim Brotherhood supporters of Morsi and the government, the military supporters. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Good to be on with you again, Steve.
Well, my pleasure. Okay, so tell us about General El-Sisi, who is now overseeing Egypt's post-Morsi transition. You say that, you know, he's hardly an anti-Morsi.
Yeah, I actually, I'm very thankful that you played that clip from Crowdhammer because I heard it live, and it just repeats these tropes, these rather superficial tropes from people, frankly, of his ilk, who simply don't understand the history of Egypt. This is a 200-year-long process of failed secularization efforts. This began under Muhammad Ali in the 1820s, not the boxer, the Egyptian despot in the 1820s. It continued under his grandson, Khedive Ismail, in the late 19th century. It actually reached its peak in terms of potentially a positive outcome in 1923 with an experiment in a constitutional parliamentary system. But everywhere the pitfall that Egyptian society refused to deal with, if it's going to become a truly pluralistic, liberty-embracing society as the Western model demonstrates, they enshrined Islam as the religion of state. Now, because Islam, not Islamism, but Islam, is an intensely political ideology which discriminates against non-Muslims, certainly, and even Muslim women, and denies basic liberties that we take for granted in the West, like freedom of speech, like freedom of conscience, etc., and incorporates absolutely horrific penalties, punishments, which really are antithetical to the dignity of the human being. Because this system has never been rejected by Egyptians, and Egyptian Muslims are symptomatic of broader problems in the Muslim world, coming to terms with the true secular society, which puts religion off in the private domain.
Well, let me ask you this, Andrew. So where are we headed here? So how can these anti-Morsi protesters that took to the streets, some say by the millions, how could they be satisfied with the interim, being installed? Are they not aware of who he is?
Listen, I think you have an economic crisis. Morsi inherited a stagnant economy, and because he absolutely had no skills whatsoever, nor did the people around him in terms of technocratic skills, which might have stopped the bleeding or certainly improved the situation, he made a bad situation worse. This is largely an economic protest. If you look at polling data repeatedly over the past 10 years, 3/4 of the Egyptian population wants a Sharia society. As many as 88% believe that apostates, those who forsake Islam, should be put to death. Now, there's no question that Morsi was a bungler in terms of how he ran the government and was very despotic himself. But that begs the question of what is the vision in the end that Egyptians have for themselves. And if we look at El-Sisi, El-Sisi is by our standards in the West a fundamentalist Muslim. His wife is reportedly fully cloaked and niqabbed. He again, according to an analyst, a respected analyst of the Egyptian military, El-Sisi really shares Morsi's ideology, but didn't like the results that Morsi was getting on the practical level and felt that he was an embarrassment in terms of the larger Islamic program.
Right. All right. So,
and needed to be removed for that reason.
So, all right. So how long do you think this transition will take? And where do you think the Muslim Brotherhood is going to wind up? I mean, we have had calls for inclusiveness from our administration here in the United States that the Muslim Brotherhood has to be involved. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood won once before.
Right.
Is it possible that the Muslim Brotherhood, that maybe even this judge who's in charge right now, or the general who's in charge right now, could run? Could another Muslim Brotherhood candidate become president of Egypt?
Look, I think first of all, it looks like, based on what's happening today, what happened over the weekend, that we're headed. The only thing seems fairly clear is that we're headed for chaos, and very bloody chaos. I think that the improvement that could be imposed on Egypt by the military, perhaps, since there was a lot of technocrats in the military, is some sort of stability or even improvement in the economy. And look, Steve, it's a very tragic and pathetic situation in Egypt. 40% of the population is growth stunted because of chronic malnutrition. A quarter of the population lives on less than $1.65 US per day, and the government struggles to provide the country with bread. These are such profound basic issues that I think that Egypt is grappling with, that we tend to focus on issues that many Egyptians at this point, in terms of freedoms, think are secondary. They want stability. And the army may provide them with some stability. As far as aid to Egypt goes,
yeah,
though,
because and I had former Congressman Hoekstra on before. We only have another minute, but he said that he believes the United States should cut off all aid to Egypt because it was a military coup. What were you going to say?
You know what? I agree with him, except for this. I think that this society, like any other society of human beings, deserves wheat. Deserves humanitarian aid. We and the Russians and I believe the Ukrainians are amongst the largest providers of wheat so that they can eat in Egypt.
Right.
That sort of humanitarian aid should continue. But I absolutely agree with Representative Hoekstra. It was a disaster obviously to have given military aid to the Muslim Brotherhood, and we should not give military aid until any government that emerges that's sort of Mubarak-like. That has some sort of stability, some sort of Western-leaning tendencies. Until that happens, if it does happen, we should not be giving any military aid to this society.
All right. Andrew, a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.